West Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. The spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofits, individuals that can help us thrive in our lives and our business. We are recording out of the Grand Castle today, inside the Grand Castle Library, which is the jewel inside the Grand Castle in Granville, Michigan. We are with WCET cameraman Brian, and now we have Ryan here, a new person she's learning today. So we're going to kind of refer to her a little bit. She's going to make sure everything goes smooth also. So we have a very special guest for you today, and I know a lot of us, I have been out there, I've been interviewing a lot of people that have struggled through COVID and discovered that their mental or even emotional state has been affected big time, and there's been a lot of issues. And I want to bring on the show the author of I Understand, Vonnie Woodrick, and she is going to share why she wrote this book and who she's connected to and how she can help people. And I'm not even going to say what it's about because she may correct me on that because we talked on the way here. But what it is to be depressed, anxiety, and what that can lead to. So welcome to the show, Vonnie.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for this book.
Yes.
We're going to be doing a book dedication, and Roger's going to be excited to read it. But what do you think about the Grand Castle?
I think it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Well, you know, we drive by all the time, and we always wonder, what does it look like inside? So it's really kind of fun being inside and seeing it all.
But you can see where I say this is the jewel of the Grand Castle. Can you imagine if you lived in a place like this? And many of us know people that are living here now. Because I think you said they only have like 3 apartments left.
Yes.
And with that being said, is just to come in here if you were going through COVID or you were locked down, you have this wonderful library because all the libraries were closed. I couldn't even imagine that. All right, so let's talk about that topic.
Okay.
All right, you just put this book out during COVID.
Yes.
Right. When did you put this out?
Yes, I launched the book in September, and September is Suicide Awareness Month.
So there you go. There's a clue of what this book is all about. And after we talked on as friends, and you wanted to do a book dedication, I realized there's so many people that are struggling. Yeah. So talk about what you do and what the purpose of this book is and who you want to help out there.
Okay. Well, I Understand is a nonprofit that supports those that have lost a loved one to death by suicide or struggle with a mental health illness. And we do that by bringing the conversation to everyday places like the Grand Castle.
Right.
It's so important that we normalize the conversation, and one of my passions is changing the narrative and how we talk about it. And we can get more into that later. But starting I Understand was because I lost my husband almost 18 years ago to depression. And I found that I was very much alone. I had 3 young kids. They didn't have other friends that had lost parents in the same way, thankfully.
Right.
I was 39 at the time.
Oh my goodness.
And I didn't have anybody that truly understood what I was going through. And it took me a good 10 years before I really started talking about suicide, about mental health. And that's how I Understand came to be, simply by giving t-shirts away. So I started by I Understand, Love Heals, giving these shirts away in honor of my 50th birthday. And we, to date, 6 years later, almost 7 years later, we've given over 16,000 shirts away.
What do people say though when you say, if you hand me a shirt, I understand, what are their questions when you hand them shirts like that? And when you start talking about suicide, do people back away because it's still a stigma today? What exactly was your response to that?
Well, stigma is the #1 reason why people don't reach out, which is why we're trying to change that. And simply, I started I Understand with a Facebook page and giving out t-shirts. So it was people asking me. It was like I was this army of one trying to make a difference. And once I opened up, once I started talking about it, once I started to change the language, so all of a sudden I had these troops behind me. And people wanted shirts. We were fortunate enough to have them the past 3 years at the local Meijer stores here.
Okay.
And we would sell them for $5 and $10. And people would buy them just because they liked what it said. I Understand, Love Heals. So that was...
It is a nice saying.
Yeah, it's to evoke conversation. Exactly. What does that mean?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I would say to you, and then you think, what does that mean today? With everybody having a mission.
Yeah.
And you understand that.
Yeah.
Where you can only allocate so much of your emotion to certain things.
Yeah.
But with COVID, I think you got probably a lot of people are like, you know what? I never had these thoughts before.
Yeah.
And now they're coming to me because they are suffering.
Yeah.
Through this whole flip.
Especially now that we're into over a year with COVID. And what I noticed with COVID was, I called it FO 220, fear of the unknown. Mm-hmm. There's so many fears of the unknown and how that affected us because of COVID. Whether you lost your job, whether you couldn't support your family, maybe you had a child that was sick and going through and you couldn't visit your loved ones at the hospital. I mean, all of these things that we haven't had to deal with on top of everyday life struggles. Right? So that unknown really put a fear into so many people. And that goes to another thing that I'm trying to do is change the definition of suicide from one who intentionally kills themselves to a side effect of a mental health illness or pain. Because it's the pain that we don't talk about. But yet pain is present in every suicide.
Well, you think of, okay, so we all grew up with the term mental illness. It was always like the nutty family member that got put into a mental illness. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's no conversation on this is seasonal. Like, you may just think, maybe you lost a baby, or maybe you went through a divorce and you went through this situation and it's seasonal. But when you put mental illness, you're going to put that on my medical record and you're going to label me that forever? Yeah. Do you understand? You could limit yourself. And that's what people are afraid of.
People are afraid. That's why we have to change the conversation, and we have to change. And in fact, one of the things that we talk about is brain illness versus mental illness, because this is
what's the difference?
Our brain. So our brain is what functions in our head. When our brain is not functioning properly, that's when the suicidal thoughts come. That's when we start to get depressed. So let's say if you had cancer, what do? You talk to your family, you go to the doctor, you get a plan, and you seek treatment, whether it's medication, whether it's whatever type of treatment that is. And
people come to your aid.
Yes, and they offer compassion.
Yes.
And you go to follow-up treatments. But what do we do with a mental health, brain health illness? We sweep it under the rug because of that fear. The fear that causes pain, the pain that can lead to suicidal thoughts and suicidal actions.
Well, the thing is, too, and I will share with you, if people don't think you're strong, that you should be handling this. Yeah. If you were a better person, all of these negative things come back, and I went through the same thing and I survived it. Yeah. I buried, I had 2 you know what I'm saying? Yeah. People always want to compare their emotional and mental state to yours.
You are exactly right. And that's the big problem. I mean, and that's why we have to start talking about mental illness, brain health illnesses, just like every other illness. And when we do, we can look at, okay, all illnesses are treatable, all illnesses are preventable, but yet all illnesses can also be terminal. Some people live, some people die. And I don't mean to sound insensitive to that, but that is the reality of the situation. We're finding out that even the flu, we can die from. So when we look at a mental health, brain health illness, whether it's depression, alcoholism, addiction, eating disorders, schizophrenia, the list goes on to all of the mental health, brain health
you don't want
illnesses.
To be put in those categories. Does that make sense? It's like you don't want to be like, okay, now there's them.
But that's what we have to change.
Right.
That's what we have to change, because every single one of us has dealt with some type of pain. Yeah. A pain that can lead to depression. Depression is an illness. So when you're suffering from that depression, and you have to go back and dissect, where did that pain come from? Maybe it was abuse as a child. Maybe it was living with a narcissist. Maybe all of these things can cause. Yeah, maybe it was being bullied. Maybe it was losing everything, and how am I going to pay my rent and feed my family?
Exactly. And being okay, and then especially when we went through COVID and you had essential and non-essential, all of a sudden, all the people that were essential, they went to work every day and they were able to get paid, and they were looking at you as like, well, you know, you should pick a better career.
Yeah.
You know, do you understand? It was almost like a comparison of that magnitude. Yeah. And I know because I was out there. Yeah. And I went through a difficult time over the summer, and a lot of my, I guess, people that I shared that with, which, you know, you got to pick your people you share that with. Mm-hmm. But everything was booming in February. I was at the castle, everything's growing, and all of a sudden, everything stopped.
Shut down.
Right? And it's not like, Vonnie, that you could go out and just get another job at that time. The whole country was shut down. And then the unknown, and then I did very well until the riots hit.
Yeah.
What I didn't want, what they were offering.
Right.
And I will tell you, I lived a very charmed life, a Hallmark life. Didn't know how much of a Hallmark life until it was taken away.
I know, right?
And then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I don't want that. I don't like your solution. So that being said, I will be honest with you, and then I just kind of figured this all out. Now I'm back. I feel stronger than I ever have, and I went through this turmoil. But I will tell you, people were judging me, and people were looking at you, just get over this, or, you know, what's the matter with you, or, you know what I mean? Just figure this out.
I know exactly what you mean, because it's in the book about how the things that people would say are so insensitive.
Get a job at Amazon. Just give up your... Are you making... I mean, you can't believe the cruelty that people said to me. Or they were like, they're experts.
Yeah.
And they put you in this box. I'm like, I am not in that box.
Yeah. Well, and you fought to get out of that box. And I think that's where the courage and the strength comes in. And it's also...
How do you get emotional, mental strength unless you go through something hard?
Right. Right.
Right?
I mean, I never thought that I would be an author of a book, a certified life coach. I have 2 podcasts. I run 2 support groups. I have a walking group. I have a widows group. I have all of these things that I started after 50. And I never thought, but it took courage, you know, and we shouldn't have to have courage to live and speak our truth. You know, your truth of who you are and what you went through, you shouldn't have to be afraid because of the judgment and the stigmas out there.
Oh, God.
We should be embracing each other as women, as a community, and saying, what can I do to help you? How can I help you? Can I help you?
No, that's not what they said.
I know,
not a lot of them.
That's what we need.
They want
that's
you
what
to
we
quit,
need to do.
Get over it. Get a job for, you know, not to say that that's not bad, but that you quit.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of people directed me towards that, and then there was other people on this other that said no. You need to keep going. I just had to work it through, figure it out, endure it, just like everybody else did. Wait till the country opens up a little bit, and then start figuring out what I'm going to do to grow the show, grow the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The company, and it worked. But I look at this as like, how do you have mental strength unless you go through something difficult?
Right. And I think also what's important is that if you had support within your home. You know, so many people don't have a spouse or family that are supportive. So many people are in isolation and truly, truly alone and don't have anyone.
Yeah, and people that were saying that to me were mostly people that were the essential workers. They were working for, you know, it's really good. I could tell you how to, you know, when everything's going well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. We can all do that. And we can all post it on social media. Get the professional help and support that's out there.
What is out there?
Well, I mean, there's treatment, therapies. There's so many different things that you can do for your mental health, and it just depends on what it is. But like I said earlier, if you have cancer or heart disease, what do? You talk about it, and you go to the doctor. It's the same thing. You talk about it and go to the appropriate, maybe it's a treatment center. Yeah. Maybe whatever it is that you're struggling and you're dealing with, therapy.
Well, I feel like I'm a whole different person than I was then. But there was a lot of people I was really I was watching that were moms that now have their kids at home full time, trying to figure, they can't, you know, they're essential or non-essential, you know what I'm saying, their job.
I don't know how they do it.
And then they had to go on medication themselves to get through this.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have anybody. I mean, you were treated like a leper.
Yeah.
Anywhere you went, nobody would talk to you.
Yeah.
And how much is that?
Well, then I think that they're hanging out with wrong people. There are caring and loving people out there, and I think that the further I get along in my life, I have been able to get rid of toxic people and surround myself with people that care and love me for who I am. You know, not for what I have, not the color of my hair or my skin or the car I drive, but for me.
Yeah.
And
but they're
out
better
there
now. They're back on track. Their kids are back in school. They got off the medication. But it was like maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
And did we know that was going to last what long as it did?
No. And you know, I just have to give the parents so much credit, because I look at myself as being a single widowed parent with 3 kids. I don't think I could have done it. Is homeschool them all, you know, and do
Me
what
neither. I had 4
they're doing.
kids.
Yeah.
And then and maybe you only have 1 computer. At that time, my kids only had 1 computer. We didn't have laptops.
No.
I mean, that just came in when we were in
Laptops,
college.
iPads, you know, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you got to follow up, and then the guilt. Not the guilt, but you're seeing that they aren't learning what they should be learning. Really? I mean, some people figured out how to hack the system, and it was so funny to hear their stories.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we got 4 people that, you know, they got a group of 4. We all did what we were experts at. You think they all figured it out.
Yeah.
And these teachers, I like to say it, they were outsmarted, a lot of them, because they didn't know they didn't have the system set up to figure this out. The kids are pretty smart.
Yeah, they are.
So the parents were kind of sitting back going, you know, So somebody did the science, somebody did the math, somebody did that. We all shared our homework because we were all in the same classroom.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting, you know, and I guess they're doing whatever works, and the parents are so drained, they're not going to be like, that's so wrong, you know. It's like,
exactly,
we're at the point where it's like, we just need to do what we need to do to get through.
Right. And then we went through summer, which helped out, and then we went through the holidays, our first holidays, where you just didn't go. I mean, I know so many people that just didn't go to family members, or their family members were just bogged down with the division of politics. Now let's talk about that. With that, and not to say that suicide is you know that, but there is a lot of families that have been divided since this all started, and there's
you know, I mean, I don't hear a lot of that.
Oh, good.
You know, but I do hear a lot of people that don't understand the illness and what the illness can do to someone, and how sometimes they have to love from a distance, you know, to either protect themselves or just because. If you're living with someone with bipolar, it can be very draining, and it can be very up and down, and or an alcoholic, or it's hard. And some people just have to step back and say, I've done what I've done, what I could, I love you. When you can come back and go with me to get the help, then we'll talk.
When do you have to let that go? When people deal with that? Because there is help. If you don't want help, then what do you as a family member, you're like, I realize, because nothing feels bad when something like what happened to your, you know, with your husband, that people are like, you know what, why didn't I notice, or why couldn't I just pick up his call? You know, why is it that we feel that way?
Well, I mean, when I think about my husband, I mean, I feel like he was diagnosed with anxiety. He was diagnosed with depression. He was on medication. He was the epitome of everything that we should be to take care of ourselves. He was so physically fit. He ate right. But at the end of the day, the depression took over and won. And I think one of the things that is really difficult for those that are struggling is they feel they're a burden on their family, and their family would be better off without them. But we need to talk about this so we can let people know that the family members are not better off without them. And so in my situation...
How long was your husband in that situation that you...
He had anxiety his whole life. All 3 of my kids have high anxiety. This is definitely a genetic component that was passed down, and that's another thing that we don't talk about. 4th generation suicide, and part of what I'm doing is for my own kids, so they can walk proud of who they are, walk proud of who their dad was, not let the illness define who he was or who they are, because they're dealing with an illness, and we have to treat it, and we have to talk about it, and we have to get help for it. But at the end of the day, there's no guarantee. I can't, even though we're doing everything right, there's no guarantee with any of us that this illness isn't going to take over and win.
Did your family rally around you?
No.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
No. I think that there's just a lot of, you know, in general, I think a lot of people are in denial. You know, it goes back to, well, you can get over that. That was stupid. That was selfish. That was selfish. That was really selfish. You know, how could he do that to you? Well,
what was going on?
Yeah, like what was going on? And you know, and although we went to therapy, we went to therapy together. But I didn't know that depression had a deadly side effect. And we need to talk about it, because if I knew today what I didn't know then, who knows, would he be here? I don't know. We don't know.
Did you know it was that bad?
I did not know. I never thought. No, I never thought. In fact, it was really, it's in the book. The night before he attempted, he told me he could never do that to me or the kids. And the next morning he did, and he was in the hospital for 4 days. And I really, really struggled with that, the comment, I could never do that to you. And in the book, and I just did a podcast with her, Tara Lipinski, who's a friend of mine. She's an NBC News commentator and Olympic gold medalist at 15 years old. And back in another lifetime ago, I toured with her and got to know her quite well. And she called me. I sent a letter out after my husband died to friends and family. And she called me. And I just said, you know, Tara, I just don't understand. He told me he couldn't do this. And she said, I can explain it to you. And she explained it in 3 words. And the 3 words were, the moment changed. At that moment, he could never do that to you or the kids. But that moment changed. And in the morning, with someone that wakes up with depression and anxiety, and you have to face that new day, it becomes very difficult for many.
How old were your children?
My children were 5, 12, and 15. And
Wow.
they are now 23, 30, and 33.
And how are they coping with all this stuff?
You know, and in the book, I think it's really special. If anything, get the book and just read the letters from my 3 kids at the end. I had each of them write a letter. And, you know, my daughter, who was 5, has no memory. So she doesn't know any different.
Right.
You know, she doesn't know what it's like to grow up with a dad.
Did any of them are famous people?
Yeah.
Robin Williams, everybody, you know, we all think they have this great life that we want to have, right? He had a great, supposedly, a great life for the years, and then all of a sudden getting the, what? I mean,
Well, but okay, and I think Robin Williams is just a great example, too, of somebody that is high. You know, he's like always on, he's always high.
Yeah.
So when somebody is that high, they can go that low.
Wow, that's a good way of putting it.
So when they go that low, and you know, obviously he was in pain. Whether it was pain from the illnesses that he was suffering, he struggled with depression and I think addiction and alcoholism for, you know, and those two are warning signs. You know, alcohol and addiction, you know, the suicide rate increases when you have alcohol in your system, when you have drugs in your system.
How about Kate Spade, the one that did the purse?
You know, I was really disappointed in the news with Kate Spade because they actually, you know, explicitly said, you know, how she did it. Oh. And I thought that was so wrong.
See, none of us have gone through what you've gone through, so we don't understand.
So wrong.
We don't mean it to be a bad question.
No, but I think it's good to educate.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter. And I just remember watching the Today Show and Hoda Kotb just shaking her head going, and she had 2 young kids. And I wanted to just like, Hoda, just because somebody has, or a young daughter, one young daughter, doesn't mean that you can't have depression. You know, I mean, don't discount.
Well, we do find that they have everything that we look at from the outside looking, we wish we had.
Well, that's because we have to look more on the inside.
Right.
Believe that when we do things with love and understanding, we have to try to understand what someone is going through and what they're, even when when we answer with judgment and angst, we get a lot different results than we do with love and understanding. So understanding and love go a long, long way. And that's why we always have pink. Pink is our color because it represents unconditional love, and that is loving ourselves enough to get and ask for the help when we need it, or loving others just for the way they are, no matter what they're going through.
Yeah, well, I do want this to help people. And all right, so you talked about how can West Michigan people reach out to you that may have some questions, want to get the book, and you said you have some podcasts that maybe have experienced what you have. And it's like, you know what, I would love to connect with a group and get through this because COVID has brought out a lot of emotion.
Okay, so I understand loveheals.org is our website, and we have so much information on there, from resources to downloads to bullying quizzes to podcast information. I have 2 podcasts. One is Be the One with Aaron and Vonnie, and behind the smile, what's really going on behind the smile of all of us, because we all have something. The book you can buy on Amazon. It is Vonnie Woodrick, I Understand Pain, Love, and Healing, by Vonnie Woodrick, with a foreword written by Mariel Hemingway.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, that's incredible. How'd you get her to do that?
You know, I think that we could do a whole nother conversation on serendipity.
Okay.
Serendipity and
let's
how,
do that.
Yes,
okay.
Serendipity, because I have, in fact, in one of my podcast partner Aaron is like, how many serendipitous moments have you had by now? And it's amazing that when we look at what happened years ago and how we had a cottage in Horton Bay, Michigan, which was Hemingway's stomping grounds. And there was one bookstore there that had every book on Hemingway. My son became a Hemingway expert. But fast forward 15 years later, after my husband died, I'm serendipitously connected with Mariel Hemingway, and we share our story. And she was gracious enough to write the foreword. And I have another one with Ginger Z and Tara Lipinski. So it's really, really interesting.
Well, like I said, I think us connecting too has been, I think it's probably, like my husband said when I was telling him about, well, that's going to be a good interview. I'm exactly on what's going on. And I really want to help people, because I felt like, I've got people that have, how do you say that? Try to take, you say the right words.
Okay, so one of the things that we do is we try to change the conversation. So okay. I say my husband died from depression. He died by suicide. He did not commit a crime. People don't commit cancer. Yeah. When we use the word kill, it darkens it. It's scary.
It is.
Yeah. So I choose
like it might touch me somewhere.
Yeah. The husband, for my husband, his illness took over and won. The illness won, just like it does with every other illness. Every other illness. This is the only illness that we don't talk about it like that.
Right. Because that's got a stigma to it.
Yeah.
We have to stop that, because people can recover from those thoughts. They can recover if they've actually tried to. You say the word,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Try to. They can recover from it, because I've interviewed those people.
Yes, absolutely.
And they don't know what happened.
Right.
They just said, I just felt like there was no out.
Right. And I think that is another really important thing, because it goes back to that pain. Pain goes away.
Yes.
Pain goes away. So if you know somebody in pain, whether it's someone that has been bullied, whether that's someone that has been struggling with a mental health illness or a physical illness or a loss, pain is there. Reach out.
Yeah, and we all suffer. Okay, so the one thing we leave with West Michigan, with your story and the book and your mission out there, what would be the one thing that you would like to people to get?
The one thing that I really want you to know is that you don't have to go on this journey alone. If you are struggling, go to your doctor, tell a friend, tell a family member, or there's a helpline that's available 24/7 at 1-800-273-TALK.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here and sharing this. I think it's so important. I think a lot of people, we don't know what the future is going to be. And maybe still suffering and not been able to get their career back, weren't the essential. And I do think it has divided the country of people that were the essential. Yeah. It's almost like I picked the right career and you didn't.
Yeah.
And it's divided us in an emotional state. Not that we don't see each other, but it's judged others.
Yeah.
And I also figure, how come you're more important than me? I love the country. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Well, we're all important.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if
it
doesn't matter if we are working, at minimum wage, or if we're making $1 million a year.
Or we do event
Every
planning.
single one of us is
or we
important.
do event planning,
yes.
or radio, or whatever. But we want to help people. But I do think that categorizing people like that has made people like, wow, maybe I should have been a nurse. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't like hospitals, so that's why I didn't. I want to wish you, Vonnie, all the success in your mission. We'll have her back. We're going to do a book dedication here, right, in a couple minutes inside the Grand Castle Library. If you have a book that you want to dedicate, give me a call. But get out there and buy. I understand, and help your family members that might be struggling. My name is Pamela Keim from GRTV Media Business TV, and we will catch you later. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.